We ran out of milk at our house, so today I'm using some special creamer that Stacy got from somewhere. It's almond milk, something or other. Anyway, I have something else I want to talk about besides almond milk. This. We recently had a lot of different family here, so we spent a lot of time in the mountains and stuff. And I have some good photos from them that I want to share at some point. But I was in my office today, just reminiscing about some things and reading through. I've been working on reorganizing my books a bit and just making sure I know what I have and that I'm not keeping something that I don't need. And so I came across this. It's called A Gracious Goodness. To Everything There Is a Purpose by A.W. Mendenhall. And it's called an autobiographical journey. Can't say that word right. But it's my friend Pastor Al from down at Living Water Fellowship, Texas. And he's been a pastor emeritus for several years, more in his retirement now. But in 2010, when I went over there to Living Water Fellowship for the first time, I remember there were several things that happened in the first couple of months. And so one of the things that happened is that I think the first Sunday I was there, I heard testimonies of things, and I was frankly surprised because I thought I knew what sort of a church I was going to. And then the testimonies I heard obviously made it not be that sort of a church as far as doctrine went and their actual practice, theological practice of their daily lives, because of the testimonies I heard. And then then I also discovered that they had a team of pastors. And so the next week when I came back, or I don't remember if it was exactly the next week, but as soon as I could, I came back. And my friend Daryl always teased me because I came that very first Sunday fully dressed out in a suit and a tie and my cowboy boots, and I was visiting churches. I just come from Vodi Bachum's church the previous Sunday where I had been completely dressed up and I still felt not as dressed up as other people. And so then I came to Living Water Fellowship there in Bulverde, and I was as dressed up as I could be, and I was the most dressed up person in the whole building that Sunday. So it was a very different feeling in the building, and so anyway, so I came there. What I discovered pretty soon was that they had several different pastors. They all worked as a team. It was an elder/pastoral board, and as they worked together, they also had other ministries or other work that they did. They were, most of them, in some way or another, bivocational. And hey, Ralph, thanks for jumping on. Blessings to you. I've seen some pictures you've been taking somewhere, beautiful places, some hiking going on. That's awesome. We've been hiking here too, and the leaves are changing colors. Beautiful here. So anyway, I walk into Living Water Fellowship, and I'm learning about the pastors that are there and how it works, and I'm immediately attracted to the idea, because at this point I knew God had called me in some way to be a shepherd, to be a pastor in his church, and I didn't know how to do that. I'm being distracted because, Ralph, New Hampshire, I haven't been there yet. It's on my bucket list of places I want to go. And one of these falls, I want to take my family up the East Coast with the RV and just spend a couple of weeks up that way. But not this year, maybe next year. We'll see. Blessings to you. So the thing that attracted me to Living Water Fellowship first that Sunday back in 2010 was that there were pastors there who had a ministry out here outside the church, and then they had their ministry inside the church. Now, that might not make sense to you if you've never had to try to figure that out, but like, if you've ever felt God calling you and then you've also been part of a church and you were trying to be faithful with the fellowship there and interacting with people, sometimes it can feel like the two things are at war with each other, where the fact that you want to minister and serve God with your gifts stand in your way of interacting with the local fellowship. And so in some churches I've been to, it was actually discouraged, where people were like, why are you always going away? Why are you leaving? Other places it was celebrated. I remember Abundant Grace in Yoakum, Texas, Pastor Jerry Wise. He celebrated the fact that we were involved with a lot of things. He would pray for us and send us out. It was a huge blessing. And so to come to this church and to see a team of pastors, and then they also had other ministries, that was powerful for me to even think about, because I thought, now it makes sense, because God had clearly put several callings in my life, and I couldn't figure out how I was going to do all of them. It just didn't seem like it would all fit. But here it began to make sense how it could all fit. And so I met Pastor Little Bear Wheeler there. I met Pastor Philip Telfer there. Pastor Doug Swanson was the music leader at the time. And then there was Pastor Al. And Pastor Al Mendenhall, I can only describe what happened next was like the whole Barnabas situation, where he took time with me. He got to know me. I felt very, very loved by Pastor Al. And there was no, I felt specifically and specially loved by Pastor Al. And the longer I stayed with the church, and later on as I was getting ordained, I realized that most everybody that was there felt very specifically loved by Pastor Al. Now, I do know on certain occasions that he stood up for people and helped other people to understand that they were in error. And so I'm thinking there might be somewhere on the planet some people who maybe were on the hard side of that love. But even then, I feel like most everybody felt loved by Pastor Al in some way. He genuinely cared for us. And so spending some time with him, I spent some time, actually I stayed at his house a few times, as I did with the other pastors there, because within just a few weeks of being there, I realized that the next step in my journey that God was leading me on involved these pastors, and I needed to learn from them. And rather than go to some seminary and learn something there, I needed to be sent out by these pastors. And so over the next number of years, I interacted with these pastors. They spent time with me. I spent time in their homes. I spent time with them in ministry. And then eventually they ordained me and sent me out to come up here to Colorado to start the church here. And so I actually went looking for pictures, because the way Pastor Al interacts with folks has just really blessed me a lot. And so Pastor Al, thank you for taking the time to just pour into my life specifically. And I was looking for a good photo of me with Pastor Al, and what I discovered is that everywhere we went, either I or Pastor Al were the ones taking the photos. So for instance, I have this picture from, let me see if I can share this properly. Here we go. So I have this photo that I took, and in this case, let me see, I can do this. Here we go. That did not work right. Hold on. Where's the screen? Oh, here we go. Maybe this one. There. Here's a picture of Pastor Al. And let me just go ahead and see if I can make that. I'll just let it be bigger, since it's not just a photo. So here is Pastor Al holding my son Peter back in around 2013. And so I took the picture that time, not him. But that happened a lot. It always felt like either here's a picture that Pastor Al took of Stacy and I when we were down in Peru. And so we were here and we took this photo. We were actually in some fountain display near Lima, and you go inside layers and layers of water. And I just thought it was so fascinating. So Stacy and I were having our little moment in there, and Pastor Al captured it and then shared it with me, which, by the way, much of my life has consisted, since I've known Pastor Al, he's taken many, many photos of me and sent them to me. But what I realized this morning as I was looking through those is, in all the pictures that he would take of me and send them to me, he wasn't in them. And so I didn't have as many pictures of him, of me. I didn't have very many pictures of me with him. So here is just a picture of Pastor Al and his wife Sherry. There we go. So Pastor Al and his wife Sherry, and then here's a closer up of them. So these two people just have greatly blessed me in my life, and I am so grateful for all the ways they have blessed me. And so that's what I was wanting to share briefly. Let me see if I can. There we go. I'm going to clean this up just a little bit. Awesome. All right. Something didn't work out right there, but my technology is challenging me. I think I'm going to blame it on my coffee. We ran out of milk at the house, and so Stacy from somewhere got some pumpkin spice creamer, which I personally am still trying to come to grips with. I don't know how many years now I haven't drunk pumpkin spice coffee. Like, I don't know if I've ever had a pumpkin spice coffee. So if you have evidence that I have enjoyed a pumpkin spice coffee, I need to see it, because my current self is wanting to call pumpkin spice in coffee heresy. Now, that's a strong statement, and I don't really have scripture to back that one up, but I just I'm struggling with the idea. But there is some in my refrigerator right now, and then there was also this oat milk or something, or no, almond milk, and then once I poured it in, I tasted it. I was like, what is this? So I went back. It's got some French vanilla flavoring with this almond milk, and so that's what I put in my coffee. I should have just kept it black and listened to Bob Chartier and just drank my coffee black. That's what I should have done, but I didn't, and so now I'm paying the price, and I think it's hitting my technological ability this morning. So anyhow, I'm drinking my coffee in a cup from Peru, because one of the biggest memories I have with Pastor Al and myself is we got to go to Peru together. That was an exciting time. But I did find a few other photos back in 2012 and 2013, as it was getting closer time for Stacy and I were already married. We had Peter. We were getting ready. Oh, let me just show you that we were getting ready for ministry. And we knew we needed to be sent out, and we were praying, and I kept telling Stacy, we're supposed to be sent out somehow by the pastors of Living Water Fellowship, and I don't know what that means. And it was at that time that I really appreciated Pastor Al and the way he stepped in and was going to bat to try to find out where we belonged. Now, a man can't tell another man where he belongs necessarily, but we are part of each other's process. And so in that process, I just really appreciated the kindness that was emanating from Pastor Al, because for a brief moment, the pastors there were considering whether or not our spot was with their team. Did I need to step into one of their pastoral spots and serve with them? What should I be doing? And so after we kind of discerned that was not the right path, then the next the discernment process was, well, do we go to Colorado with the Gilberts? And so there was a lot going on, and eventually we ended up going to Colorado. But before we went to Colorado, we spent a lot of time, like here's a picture. How do I do this again? Right here. There we go. So here's a picture of us, and this is me, and down the row here is Pastor Al. Here's Pastor Little Bear. So we have, and then here's Ernie and Julie, and Pastor Nathan and Bailey are there, and my wife and I are here. And so we actually spent a lot of times meeting with different meeting like that. With Pastor Nathan was not yet a pastor, but he was in training to become one. Ernie and I were there training to become a pastor. So we'd spend some time together. Now, I'd spent, before this, back in 2010 and 11, I had spent a significant amount of time with the pastors at Living Water there in Texas, and I'd gotten to know how they worked, and so that was a blessing. But so this was part of how we worked together. This was fun. In addition to the picture I had of Pastor Al with Peter, I also had this picture of Sherry with Peter. So those were the kind of photos I found first. Well, actually, the very first photo I found was this picture. Where is it? I was like, I know that I took some photos in Pastor Al's home. Where is it? And so I came looking, and this is the one. It was this this ship that was on his mantle, and I had taken this picture back in like 2014. And so that was the first picture I could find, was when I was trying to find a picture. I did not find a photo of just me and Pastor Al anywhere. But I did find this picture once we were up here and had started the church. Well, actually, here's a photo. This was a picture I found where this is the Sunday that I was being ordained. And so you have in the back here Pastor Doug. Over here is Pastor Philip Telfer. Pastor Al is here, and I think Pastor Little Bear was on over to this side. So there were 4 pastors around, and here Pastor Al is speaking a blessing over us. And so he had a huge amount of impact into my life, for which I'm grateful. And then later, let's see, I think I can find that photo too. I have this picture here of once we were ordained, Pastor Al and Pastor Little Bear had come up to actually visit us. And so here you see me and Pastor Ernie and Pastor Little Bear and Pastor Al. We were all out to get some coffee that morning, and we're chatting together. And so this was a huge blessing. So I do have photos of me and Pastor Al in the same picture. So I'm grateful for that, because at first I thought I couldn't even find that. So I do have some pictures like that. And then I had one of the things that I really appreciated the most was in 2013. So this was at the time or leading up. So in 2012, there was a plan being made that Living Water Fellowship in Texas wanted to encourage the, I believe it's Mission Calvary in Huánuco, Peru, and the school there, the Christian School of the Andes. And our connection to that was Gary and Amelia Tebby. And then later we got to know Pastor Abel and some others. And so Pastor Al was connecting, which is something he did a lot, where he connects people in ministry with needs that are there. And so he was reaching out to us saying, what would it take to make something of a documentary style thing for the Christian School of the Andes, for Gary and Amelia Tebby. So we had never done this before. And so we launched on this experiment. So one of the first things we did was sometime in that year, we met Gary Tebby at Pastor Al's house, and we spent like an entire day interviewing him. So we wanted these short little pieces to put into the promo for Christian School of the Andes, but I didn't know how to get those. And so some people that have interviewed with me since then, you probably know what it's like. We start talking, I forget why I'm there, I start asking you questions down every kind of possible bunny trail, and you don't know, well, maybe we need this or maybe we don't. And so my wife will be like, well, can you stay on focus? So Stacy has continually been trying to help me to stay on focus when we do these interviews. But here I was, and we made poor Gary very tired that day, but he gave a very good interview that we used then for multiple little pieces. But then in 2013, in July, we traveled down to Peru, down to we went to Huánuco. Then after we'd spent some time with the school there, we'd spent some time with everyone. Then we went to Lima, and then we went down to Machu Picchu. And so Pastor Al went along with us on all of that, and we just had a really good time together. So this mug, I'm using the Peruvian mug today, even though my coffee is a little bit strange. My mug is very familiar, and I love this mug. So while we were there, I had different people share different things onto the camera that we were trying to put into this. And so this became something that Pastor Al shared, became something that was standalone. So it's actually somewhere out on YouTube or somewhere, but I wanted to play the video here. So Pastor Al and I are down there. And so like Pastor Al was this kind of guy, he did so much meticulous planning, so much thought and prayer into this Peru mission trip. And I just remember I remember it because he was so much in charge. He was making it happen, and he was doing well. And then we're on the plane down to Peru, and somewhere it felt like we were either at the airport in the United States or already in Peru, somewhere there. Oh, hi Evangeline. Thanks for listening. So we were on the plane, and actually Katie was along with us, my sister-in-law, but we were on the plane down, and as we were going down, Pastor Al just kind of leaned over and looked at me and says, now, when we get there, you're going to be in charge. You're going to figure things out with Gary Tabb, and you're going to tell us what we're going to do. And I was like, wait, mate, me? What? I'm going to be in charge? And so I really appreciated the meticulous planning and everything that Pastor Al had done. And in the end, I appreciated his nudge for me to help take responsibility and leadership, because I had my backpack full of camera gear and I was just going to go and kind of start filming everything. That was my plan. And so it kind of switched things over to where I needed to actually take responsibility, and that was good. But while we were on our trip to Machu Picchu, we captured this from Pastor Al, and I wanted to just play this. So this is a video, about a 4-minute video that of special thing that happened on our way in Peru. Here we go.
We're here at the salt mines of Salina de Mare here in Peru, and it's sunny, as you can see, a beautiful day. I wanted to just share with you what I have come to appreciate about Peru. It's a land of many contrasts. One is the contrast of Huanao and Tina Maria in the Amazon. One of the towns have a very primitive little infrastructure, whereas Tina Maria is beautiful, lush, a lot of tourism. That's a contrast you'll find throughout Peru. Another was as we were going up through the towns in Machu Picchu, the contrast there, especially in Machu Picchu, you see the ruins of the Incas and then the beautiful creation around. And most people were going up for both, I would imagine. But what impressed me was the creation of God all around, just amazing. And then the culture itself that had, over the course of many centuries, have resulted in all that is left are stones upon stones, whereas God's creation is continually magnified and glorified through the wonder of the mountains, the peaks, and the lighting was just spectacular. But the most, I think, significant thing for me on this trip was when I met a lady when our van broke down. Her name was Theodora. And Theodora, I found her sitting in the sun in the front of her home, in the doorway, reading her Bible. So I went to speak with her, and I asked Rebecca to translate for us. And all she could do was praise God and thank God, talk about Jesus. That was such a blessing. In contrast to that was a young lady named Jennifer. And Jennifer was on our ride. She joined us. And she had a tremendous knowledge. She was a delightful young lady. But all she was able to share was her knowledge of education and the knowledge of how that there is a need for education. Theodora had little education, I would imagine. She was probably 95. As she placed her hands upon her Bible, sitting there in the sun, this aged lady and those beautiful hands on that scripture spoke greatly to my heart, especially the knowledge that she had in the Word. And her son was a pastor. Whereas Jennifer, as we were going up to Cusco, had so much knowledge regarding education and what a world knowledge. She traveled all over the world, and yet she had absolutely no understanding of eternity and the knowledge of Christ. And here we are in the salt mines, and certainly there is a beauty in them. The salt of the earth are those that spread the gospel. Indeed, Theodora was one of those that are the salt of the earth. So I thoroughly enjoyed meeting her, and will think of her many times throughout the course of my life. I'll be seeing Theodora with the Lord one day. I pray that that would be the same with Jennifer.
What we discovered was that Theodora, when she was a young girl, had for just about a year, maybe 2 years, gone down either to Lima or to Wanako, and had spent some time there in school and had learned how to read just well enough that later, when she was called back to her community, and an evangelist came through with a Bible, she got a Bible and she was able to read it well enough to then lead her family to the Lord. But just a brief moment of education to get her to the point of being able to read. And so you see the hand of God in this. It was marvelous to think about that. And I was actually over underneath that van trying to work on it to make it work again, and I didn't get to see her but the other people on our team were the ones who filmed it. And so I was so grateful for that story and for Pastor Al. And I just often think of, he was thinking about Theodora as being the salt of the earth. And I think of Pastor Al as being the salt of the earth. And it's both true. And so, the title that Pastor Al had put for his book, his autobiography, just his memories that he'd made. This was, I think, just made for the family. I'm not even sure if you can find a copy of it anywhere to get. So I'm not trying to plug it. I'm just telling you, it just reminded me of the goodness of God and what God had done. And he called it A Gracious Goodness. And I feel like that is a good title for how God used Pastor Al in my life. That it was a gracious goodness that he reached through and used Pastor Al to encourage me on my journey. And so I am so grateful for friends and mentors like that who walked alongside me. I'm very grateful for those couple weeks there in Peru that summer of 2013, and just for what God was doing in my life at that time. It was so precious. And so I am grateful for the friendships along the way. And today I was just taking a moment to say thank you, Pastor Al. Thank you to the Lord for letting me interact with Pastor Al and Sherry, and for the work that they had, that God did in my life through them. There's many other people, but as the leaves are the fall, the leaves are turning colors in the fall. We're moving up toward Thanksgiving, and I'm always just reminded of so many ways that God has blessed me with friendships and with other people that my life is intertwined with, my journey is intertwined with, and so this was one of those. So I am grateful, and that's really what I wanted to share today. I just wanted to share that little bit about Pastor Al, and then let him, share the part about the salt mines and talk about the salt of the earth. So it's a good reminder. I want to be the salt of the earth, and I want to truly experience the gracious goodness of God, and to share that with other people, to love and connect folks. So those are my thoughts for today. Thanks for joining in. I will see you next week, I believe. So blessings.